A little over a month ago, financial institutions at the COP26 Climate Summit pledged $130 trillion. That's right, trillion with a T, to invest in efforts to tackle climate change. This is a testament to the amount of capital that's available to address our most urgent global problems and achieve major societal change. I would argue that the issue of education falls into this category. We're in the midst of the greatest educational crisis in a century. More than 77 million children globally haven't seen the inside of a classroom in more than 1.5 years. And as you know, we don't know when that will change, given the unpredictability of the COVID-19 pandemic. The loss our children are carrying is palpable. From academic learning loss to social emotional loss, the list goes on. Take Kirma, an 8-year-old girl in the state of Madhya Pradesh in India. When schools closed because of the pandemic, Kirma should have been in the midst of the most important foundational learning of her life, learning to read. For many children in Kirma's situation, this would have been an end to learning. But Kirma's lucky. Her teacher Sapna had resources that she dropped off at Kirma's house through the Strengthening Academic Leadership for Early Reading program, a program provided by UNICEF, the State Department of Education, and Room to Read. In addition, Kirma's uncle, who was in his first year in college, was able to come to Kirma's house and help her learn. Kirma is continuing her education because of the collaboration between government and nonprofits, as well as the support of her family. But for every Kirma, there are hundreds of children without this type of support. That's why we must act now to stop the education crisis that's unfolding alongside the COVID-19 crisis. The world is facing the erosion of a century of progress if we don't accelerate our work. We simply must amplify our impact. And to accomplish this, we need bigger solutions. More capital, more creativity, more diversification of partnerships. Public-private partnerships are essential to creating world change at scale. These partnerships offer new and flexible funding sources. They promote new ways of thinking and working, and they allow for capacity building, all of which can contribute to long-term sustainable change. Here's what the partnerships can offer. The nonprofit sector focuses on developing, implementing, and assessing interventions. The private sector has the capital to invest and knowledge to impart. The public sector provides additional resources and the jurisdiction to change curriculum, update teacher training, enhance instructional approaches, and provide quality materials, all at scale. Together, this trifecta and its commitment to collaboration can be game-changing. At Room to Read, we've seen remarkable impact through these types of partnerships. I'm going to share with you the impact of our public-private partnerships on the children's book publishing world in underserved countries where Room to Read works. I'll also share the impact of public-private partnerships on girls' education and discuss the lessons we've learned through 3 unique partnerships. But first, let's begin with a story read by actor and education advocate Julia Roberts. We greatly appreciate Julia for lending her talents last year at the height of the COVID-19 lockdown to encourage children to keep reading and learning while out of school. Julia Roberts read this story during the Call to Unite, a 24-hour global live stream that sought to connect people in the face of the COVID-19 crisis.
Let's read Rescue the Princess together. Rescue the Princess. I am the princess, the girl said. So you are the knight, okay? This is an evil tower where I am locked up, so you have to go there and rescue me. So the princess ran to the evil tower at the top of the guava tree, high above the farm. She climbed up and waited for the night to come. Suddenly she heard, woof, 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 woof. Ah, a dog, the knight's voice called. Save me, please. On my way, the princess replied, and she chased the dog inside, then went back to the tower in the guava tree. There she continued waiting for the night. Suddenly she heard, quack, 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 quack. The knight cried out, a goose, a giant goose. Save me, princess. So the princess climbed down from the tower and chased the goose into its cage. Then she hurried and scurried back up the guava tree to the evil tower. "You're back," cackled the tower. Finally, the knight was standing under the tower. He was shaking and quaking, shouting, "Oh no! I see a slimy, snake-like worm." Luckily, the princess was prepared. She leapt out of the tower, battled the terrible snake-like worm, captured the terrible snake-like worm, then quickly climbed back to the evil tower to await her rescue. At last, the knight called out again, "I can't climb up there. The tree is too high. What if I fall?" So the princess fetched a ladder. "Here you go, knight," the princess said. "Now, can you please rescue me?" Now the knight feared nothing. He bounded up the evil tower and saved the princess. I hope you enjoyed that story. I sure did. It was nice to read together.
As you've just seen, Rescue the Princess is not your typical fairy tale. The narrative takes a different and unexpected approach, with the princess rescuing the little knight. You may have been expecting the little knight to rescue the princess, a story told repeatedly for centuries, but herein lies lesson number 1. Think differently. Think differently to help capital flow. Public-private partnerships can and should be more than binary. They don't have to be limited to nonprofit and private funder partnerships or nonprofit and government partnerships. Instead, we need to explore entire systems or constellations of partnerships. What may not be achieved alone or in limited partnerships can be achieved through much broader collaborations. This enables communities to leverage the assets of a variety of partners to nimbly deliver the best programs possible at the best cost structures. Diverse funding sources and partnership models give flexibility in how to invest funding. They enable experimentation, allowing organizations to try new approaches, continue implementing what is working, and quickly change what isn't working. In this environment, innovation flourishes. Magic happens when high-quality programs are developed, tested, and refined by innovative multi-sector partners, unified by a common goal. Let me share an example of how Room to Read brought together a unique partnership to strengthen the local language publishing industry in South Africa. The project included the government of South Africa, the World Bank Reach together with the Global Book Alliance, Room to Read and its private investors, and 5 publishers, as well as authors and illustrators and local educators. The goal of the project was to increase awareness of the importance of storybooks in promoting literacy and strengthening the local language publishing industry, to increase the availability of quality storybooks in African languages. The lack of access to high-quality children's picture books for young children in all 11 official languages in South Africa often leads to mislearning and learning loss at a young age. But the problem is that it isn't always profitable for publishers to publish in all local languages. So how could we increase the supply and demand for high-quality children's books that South African children could relate to, understand, and benefit from? That was the issue we sought to address. Our solution would need to address both supply and demand. On the supply side, Room to Read collaborated with the government of South Africa to create national guidelines for high-quality children's books. Based on these guidelines, Room to Read increased the capacity of local publishers, illustrators, and designers to publish children's books with culturally and socially appropriate stories that were written in local languages. We engaged and trained publishing partners in areas like editing and book design, and ultimately 20 early grade storybooks were created in 5 local languages, resulting in 100 new children's book titles. To make the industry sustainable, we also needed to increase the demand for storybooks while keeping costs down. On the distribution side, the government of South Africa and the publishers got creative. They pooled procurement and put in place a sliding scale model for provinces and schools to purchase the books. This allowed for a larger print run of the children's books, making the books more affordable and more available to children living in the program target areas. As a result, 65,000 books were distributed to government schools in the target area, and the cost savings from the pooled procurement will allow more books to be distributed nationally. In addition to funding the project, the World Bank Reach and Global Book Alliance encouraged all the partners to strengthen the local language publishing industry. Of course, nothing strengthens an industry like the ability to make money, and this project demonstrated a profit of 47% from African book sales when typical profits are about 10%. This goes to show that nonprofits don't always act independently and outside of the economy. They can contribute to and uplift depressed markets. The lesson here: don't be afraid to play on the strengths of a variety of partners and bring together large, diverse partnerships. We implemented a model that proved to be profitable and ultimately sustainable. We could have thought small and stopped at publishing a few books. Instead, the partnership looked at how to go big and change the system. And this type of impact doesn't always require a huge financial investment. In this case, the capital investment was around $500,000 US. Let's now return to the story of Rescue the Princess. Books always teach us new things. We met the earnest little knight. He's open and honest in telling the princess multiple times that he's in a bit of trouble and needs her help to get out of it. He's an open book. And his openness leads us to lesson number 2. Be transparent. The COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on global education is requiring us to find new creative solutions on a large scale. How do we move donors from investing in individual projects with smaller impact toward investing in long-term systemic change, which has a greater overall impact on societal systems? This movement is essential for sustainable change to happen. To evolve our donors and public-private partnerships in this direction, there must be clarity, transparency, and evidence that will help investors see just how much more is possible with these types of partnerships. Room to Read has devoted energy over the past few years to help our donors see the importance of partnership. I'm proud to share that 90% of our revenue streams now come from private donors, and half of that from individuals. Their willingness to invest in scalable solutions that involve multiple partners demonstrates their trust and shared ownership in long-term systemic change. Let me share an example of how Room to Read applied the concept of being transparent to build a library system through partnership. This example is from Vietnam, and the partnership included the government of Vietnam, Dubai Cares, Room to Read and its individual investors, as well as local school librarians. The issue we set out to address was that only 17% of primary schools in Vietnam have libraries. Of those, 1 in 3 libraries lack adequate space, and more than half don't allow children to check out books. Without books at home, children cannot participate in reading together with family members, an activity which develops critical learning skills and creates lifelong readers. To put these statistics into perspective, let me tell you about Hugh, a boy in our program who only had access to books twice a year when the mobile bookseller drove through his town. Twice a year. Can you imagine this? It's hardly a recipe for developing a love of reading and learning. Our solution was to go big and transform the national school library system. The partnership is creating more than 600 child-friendly school libraries in communities that need them most. We based our approach on Room to Read's I Do, We Do, You Do, best-in-class, locally led, and sustainable model, where school libraries are established in 3 forms. Libraries fully supported by Room to Read, libraries operating through a combination of Room to Read and government support, and libraries fully implemented by the government. This I Do, We Do, You Do model is transforming national school libraries in Vietnam in a manner that is sustainable and locally led, tripling the number of communities impacted within 5 years, with an end goal of reaching all primary schools in the country. This is good news for children like Hugh, who deserve a chance to feed their love of reading and explore their world through books. In Rescue the princess builds up the skill to save the knight from potential catastrophes again and again. We see the knight saved from a dog, a goose, and a snake-like worm. The lesson? If something works, repeat it, which brings us to our third point about creating public-private partnerships. Replicate what works in terms of building partnership and use those lessons in different contexts. The first 2 case studies I shared showcased public-private partnerships that provided access to high-quality children's books in the market and in schools. Now I want to shift to a different area: gender equality through education and associated economic empowerment. Let me share an example of how Room to Read applied the concept of replicating ideas that work to raise the economic participation of women in the Telangana state of India. Our public-private partnership included the Telangana state government in India, Warburg Pincus, a leading global private equity firm, Room to Read and its individual investors, and the teachers at government schools. Telangana is a fast-growing state in India. Hyderabad, the capital, is a major commercial center. The issue we set out to address was how to ensure young women are part of the potential expansive economic growth when girls, as opposed to boys, are disproportionately affected by not completing school due to financial hardship and inequitable gender norms. Our solution was to create large-scale systemic change. So we took a proven model of gender equality programming in middle and secondary schools, and with capital funding from Warburg Pincus, replicated it on a broader scale throughout the state. Life skills training is one of the critical components of this model. Room to Read's life skills lessons equip girls with the abilities they need to negotiate key life decisions and become change makers in their communities. With this partnership, a new component on global climate change justice was added to the training because of the clear connection between climate justice and gender equality. As I'm sure many of you know, research shows that when women participate in leadership and decision-making in their families and communities, it leads to more environmentally sustainable options. So through this partnership over the course of a year, Room to Read implemented life skills programming, including training teachers in a select number of government schools. And meanwhile, the Telangana government then leveraged and scaled the Room to Read curriculum for life skills training and global climate change justice. And now this curriculum is being delivered in public schools throughout the entire state. I hope these examples offer inspiration to think differently and think big when creating public-private education partnerships. These collaborations are a winning proposition. They lead to more innovation and entrepreneurship. They lead to big change, and most importantly, they lead to more educated and equitable societies. There's so much potential in joining forces and investment to collaborate and address society's most pressing challenges. Imagine if we had $1 trillion to address global education, in addition to addressing climate change. It is possible. The capital investment exists. We just need to keep moving our mindset and behavior further along to focus on the horizon of large-scale systemic change. Public-private partnerships are a byproduct of seeing the system flow, rather than viewing it in truncated parts. In Rescue the Princess, we learn what's possible when people work together in unexpected ways. The same is true of public-private partnerships. When these collaborations are done well, they result in significant change. And that's precisely what's needed for us to confront the education crisis ahead. Together, we can create a world where nobody needs to be rescued because all children are equipped with the skills and knowledge necessary to solve the world's greatest challenges. Thank you.